Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and bringing to you Rudy's Common Sense, and maybe one of our more exciting and maybe important podcasts. We've just returned from a 4 or 5 day trip, can't remember quite, but we were before legislatures in Arizona and in Michigan and in Georgia. And in each one of the cases, we were able to present, substantial evidence that has them seriously considering decertifying the election. In fact, as they weigh through this evidence, they will find, as Professor Eastman so elegantly laid out in the testimony yesterday in Georgia, is really their duty, not just their right. But more on that just a teeny bit later. Yesterday, there was a breakthrough of major proportions. Were this case treated in a country that's fair, in a country that had a free press, and in a country that had not the kind of censorship that's been imposed on us now for well over 3 or 4 months, a censorship made up of big tech, big business, big media, NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, some mention of it on Fox, some, not a lot, good deal of mention on OAN and Newsmax. That's about it. The American people are now being deprived of the most significant evidence of voter fraud that I've ever seen, and one that answers the question, just in watching it, that all of the allegations the Republicans are making are true. After all, we have produced well over 700 affidavits sworn to by eyewitnesses, and we're told we have no evidence. And the phony media repeats it, and we occasionally have it repeated on Fox. We're told that they've debunked the theory that inspectors were thrown out of examination of mail-in ballots. Instead, we have 400 affidavits of inspectors being thrown out. There's no doubt they were thrown out. The media prefers to print the lies of Biden, the Democrats, the establishment, lies supported by big tech, big media, big business, supported by the crooked Democratic Party, supported by the radicals, by Black Lives Matter and Antifa, who are all involved in this, and also cheering in the background, with some role in it, Communist China. This is a swindle of major proportions. And now you're going to see a tape that honestly makes it look like a bank heist in the middle of the night. Remember those great movies with Pierce Brosnan? They get in the bank, middle of the night, they take the safe apart, nobody around, they'd wait until everybody leaves. How come they didn't do it in front of the guards? Because they were committing a crime and they'd get caught. What we are going to show to you today, under any other circumstances, would be considered a breakthrough of major proportions. All these weeks of Republicans coming up with evidence, affidavits, expert opinions, even some tape recordings, but nothing like this. This is a bank heist pulled off in the middle of the night, clearly indicating that the Georgia Democrat Party was stealing the election for Joe Biden on purpose and completely against the law. So let me get you oriented to the film, because it's a very long film, and we can only show you a little bit of it right now. That's all we have right now, are portions of it. I've seen the whole thing, and the whole thing is even more devastating, but it will take some time to analyze it and get it freed up. But here's the point. What you have in front of you now are 4 frames from 4 different video cams, safety cams, that recorded probably all night. Certainly by 8 o'clock in the morning, they were recording well through 1, 2, or 3 o'clock when this all ended. But right now it looks empty, and I want to therefore lay out what to look for and where different people were located. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you will see that there are a group of tables toward the back. Those are the tables where the calculations and tabulations are done. That's where the votes are calculated and put into the vote count, presumably examined. And they are supposed to be examined with the observation of third parties, including Republicans and members of the press. If you come, let's say, down or further toward the front of that frame, it's the frame in the upper right-hand corner, and I will list it as frame number 1. You'll see a black table, or a table covered what appears to be a black cloth, and then right behind it, something like a table or possibly something else, a bin covered in white. That's where all the activity is going to take place, right there. If you go down from that, you will see number 2, right down from it on the right-hand side of the 4 frames. You'll see a frame of largely most of the room, except from the perspective now of the people counting the votes, because they're out of the picture and they are looking back at what's happening. So, first thing you see on the right is that same box, covered in black, with the white box or bin next to it. Then you see another table that seems to have been inserted. And then way toward the back, toward the wall, you see it's empty at this point, but that's where during the day the observers are allowed to stand and observe. That would include members of the press, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whomever. Public access so you can assure that the counting is honest. And what you see here is you see the area where the press and the observers are located. You see that at the very back of the photo, against the wall, and that's basically facing back to frame 1. So 1 and 2 constitute one frame, looking at it this way and looking at it that way. The frames, let's call it 3, in the bottom left-hand corner, is a perspective from the side, and there we don't seem to have an observation of the critical black table, or the critical table covered in black. To me, it eerily looks like some form of a casket, and you expect Dracula to come out of it. And since they do this at 1, 2 in the morning, maybe it could only be done at night. I don't know, when you commit crimes like this. And when you go up to number 4, you can see we get most of the table in the bottom, and basically in the bottom of the picture, you can see the table. You can see the white, we don't know if it's a table or bin behind it. And then you can see, facing it, the people who are going to be involved in evaluating and counting and theoretically examining the vote, although they do very little examining, if any. Now, let me take you back just a little, because we don't have this tape yet. I've seen it, but it hasn't been produced yet. And the lady who is a lawyer from an institute who analyzed all this is going to explain it to you. The votes that were counted around 1 or 2 in the morning were brought in about 8:30 in the morning before, and they were put under that black table by a lady with blonde hair and braids. That's the way she's described. So let me play this for you now, and I think this will help you somewhat follow it, although it does happen quite fast, but it is of enormous significance. And by the way, the number of votes here flips, without any doubt, Georgia, from Biden, who dishonestly won it, to Trump, who honestly won it. And then there are about another 100,000 votes that also were stolen. But this alone does it.
At about 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to roll this back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table.
Now we can see the lady in the left-hand corner who had just come to take the ballots from hidden under the table over to the left-hand corner counter, and she's giving them out and apparently giving some instructions to the person who's going to count those ballots. There had been one previously given out, and now we're going to see a man in a red or pink, depends on how the coloring came out here, take another batch of votes hidden under the table for clandestine examination without observation by anyone independent.
Yeah, upper right hand, you see the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out.
Just to stop for a minute, you can see that the man in the red went all the way from there to the furthest part of where the counters are. You might not be able to see him now, but I'm putting a marker on him, and he's all the way over in the corner, showing the counters in the corner what to do. The woman with a yellow sweater on, who had delivered that batch to the group on the left, seems to have already completed her mission in telling them how to count, and presumably telling them to count quickly, because I want you to note, that's why I stopped it, that when you watch this and you look down to frame 2, would you please notice that there are no observers? That whole observer table has no one, not a single person. This is why it was done this way, so they could be counted when there were no observers around. What's the point of bringing them in at 8 o'clock in the morning, not counting them right away in front of the observers, and waiting until 1:30 in the morning and counting them then with nobody around? What that adds up to in any trial, in any court in America, is evidence of guilt. They didn't do this because it was more fun to do it secretly. If these were honest ballots, they'd have been very happy to show it to the Republicans and the reporters. But if these ballots are all in the same signature, have tremendous deficiencies, need to be filled in more, maybe a blank and need to be filled in, they are perfectly at liberty now to do it. And the protection that the law of Georgia, and then ultimately under the United States Constitution, the Constitution of the United States gives you for the protection of your road, has just been devastated. It's just been ruined by Georgia. We'll be right back. I couldn't believe we were evicted from our home that we didn't even sell. Those are the words of a homeowner, Deborah, when she learned she was the victim of home title fraud. It's a devastating crime that can cost you your home. And title fraud is not covered by insurance or common identity theft services. The only folks to trust that I know of to protect your home's title is Home Title Lock. Cyber thieves have discovered the titles to our homes are kept online. They forge your name on your deed stating you sold your home, and they refile as the new owner. In Deborah's case, she didn't even know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived in her mail. Home Title Lock protects you and your home by putting a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they mobilize to shut it down. Go online to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and don't know it. Then use code RUDY, that's me, and sign up for 30 free days of protection. That's code RUDY at HometitleLock.com. Welcome back to a story that if it doesn't shock you, there's something wrong. Let's go on with this wonderful presentation by the expert.
So what are these ballots doing there, separate from all the other ballots? And why are they only counting them whenever the place is cleared out with no witnesses? Is the question. So these machines can process about 3,000 ballots an hour. You have multiple machines there, and they're there for 2 hours. So you do the math. How many ballots went through those machines in those 2 hours when there was no one there to supervise, to be present, consistent with your statutes and rules, to supervise the tabulation? We believe that could easily be, and probably is certainly, beyond the margin of victory in this race.
So let's write her numbers down. She says, and you now at home, you correct me if you're wrong. If I'm wrong, put your hand up. I'll be able to see you. So we have 3,000 per hour per machine. Okay. We don't know yet, and we'll find out officially what we have. If we look up and we look at frame 1, which appears to be showing all the ballot counters Like the ballot counters seem to be at one end of the room where the glass partition is, and the observers are at the other end of the room, so far away that let's start with the fact, even the ballots that were processed before, nobody got a right to observe because you can't see a football field away, unless you're Tom Brady maybe, and he wasn't there. So they were stealing all day, but now they're in bank heist territory. I'm surprised they didn't have masks on, Well, maybe they do have masks on for COVID. We'll have to take a look. Hey, those COVID masks came in handy for these crooks, huh? So let's count the number of tables we see there, which at least to give us some indication of the number of machines that we're going to multiply by 3,000. I'm counting now from left to right. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That fifth one is where the man in red went to the very back and had it done. The first one is where the woman with the yellow shirt on brought the ballot she took out, and then we saw them brought to the two in the middle. So I would say there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 operating machines. 5 operating machines per hour, 3,000 per hour. So that's 6,000 in 2 hours. Who would like to add up 5 times 6? That's an easy one, right? 30,000. What was the margin of victory? 10,000. Election over. These are taken out of Maricopa County, where he was ahead. It also should be taken right out of the Democratic number. These aren't Republican county officials. These are Democrat county officials. Why should Republicans suffer for the crimes of Democrats? I know in Washington that's what they try to do, but in America, people suffer for the crimes they committed. So these 30,000 votes should be taken right out of Biden's number. They were done by Biden's people. In fact, they were done so blatantly by Biden's people. Our people were thrown out. And I know there's no longer a free press, but why aren't they angry that they were thrown out? Because they're in the tank. I don't know if that's an expression everyone knows. It may be a New York boxing expression. In the tank means you've been corrupted. You've been bought off. It means you're one of these creeps that can be purchased. If a reporter looks at this and doesn't see a Pulitzer Prize winning story, then give up the profession. Go do something else. They might have done a bank robbery better than this. And let's see what kind of phony excuse the Fulton County crooked Democrat counting machine is going to make for this one. And let's see if the crooked press accepts it. And let's see if any of the networks cover it. And then when the whole tape comes out and it's completely analyzed, here's what you'll see. You'll see them coming in the morning, all friendly, all everything. The observers are put at the, as you see in frame 1, at the far end of the room where they can see nothing all day. They complain all day that they can see nothing. They are ignored all day by the crooks. So all those ballots counted should be discounted. But in case you just can't buy that, in case we have to hit you with evidence that we normally don't get in order to break down the propaganda exercise that was done on your mind, what you just saw is probably one of the most dramatic examples I've ever seen of someone trying to steal an election for President of the United States. I mean, these people should all go to jail for a long time. And it's not good to say, like some of the senators tried to escape it, well, we'll fix it in the next election. Oh my goodness, they've been saying that in Philadelphia for 50 years. They've been saying that in Chicago since Daley stole the 1960 election. I mean, all these Democratic cities, they've been saying for years they're going to fix it. They're not going to fix it. I know how you fix crime. You put the criminals in jail and you reverse the consequences. And there are laws to do that. This is beyond the competence of the rest of the state government. The United States Constitution, as I pointed out, gives us the remedy, the sole remedy. And this is a chance for us maybe to work our way out of this by reaffirming the genius of the United States Constitution. Can you believe that our founding fathers anticipated that this kind of corruption could happen? Of course you can believe it. Madison once said, if men were angels, we wouldn't need governments. Jefferson, Franklin, all had an equal, critical attitude of the human personality that could easily lead to corruption because of the desire for power and money. And boy, these crooked Democrats have both. Hillary pulling down hundreds of millions with the Clinton Foundation illegally, Biden pulling down hundreds of millions with the Biden family organized crime group. That's what we're dealing with. But let me give you a little more of the evidence there, because although this all by itself decides the election, let me say you're not dealing with just this one group of fraudsters in Fulton County. According to the analysis done by a recognized election expert, a man who holds an MBA from Harvard, a science degree from Duke, he's worked for NASA, he's worked for MIT, he does statistical analysis of many, many different things, including elections. He has submitted an affidavit, and in court, affidavits of experts are evidence. This is the evidence they say we don't have. I'd just like you to look at it and sort of, if you see one of them, just show it to him very nicely, very politely, and say, I'm a meek little Republican, and I know that you've been pushing us around for years, and I know you're much tougher than we are, but you know you cheated. Would you please admit it? See, this is the way I caught a lot of criminals that way. That's the way I caught I went up to them and I said, I'm really afraid of you, but would you mind, Fat Tony, just testifying and telling me how many people you killed? I don't know what's wrong with us. The Democrats get together, stick together, commit heinous crimes. We can't get our people to do the right thing. I mean, why hasn't the governor called a special session? He's all worried about people not voting in the Senate election. Doesn't he understand why they're upset? Don't you get it? They're upset because they were cheated. They see something like this, they're going to go crazy. They should. They were cheated. The people of Georgia voted for Donald J. Trump. And the Democrats and Trump stole it with the help of the media, big tech, and with the help of Republicans that don't have the spine to stand up to them. I don't expect us to be dishonest at all. I expect us to have courage. So, how about this? If you feel uncomfortable about changing the vote in Georgia, let me make you feel much more comfortable. Georgia, ballots with no return record at all. In other words, there's no record that this ballot was returned, because when the ballot is returned, the number is checked off against the application when it was sent out. There were 231,188 of those. During the course of the pre-election, they were able to cancel out about 134,588 of those. However, they included ballots with no return record, and they voted 96,600 of those. Those should all be taken out. Those are all illegal. They should be taken out based on where they were in the county. And I would argue, given the fact that this fraud was perpetrated by the Democrat Party, it should be taken out of the Democrat count exclusively, rather than just generally taken out of the vote as if it was just, a mistake. This isn't a mistake. This was deliberate. By the way, they run the vote counting. The Democrats run the vote counting. So why should we be penalized for their crimes? There's another 96,000 votes. So now we have Trump winning by 96,000, 30,000. Oh, gee, 120, kind of like where he was on election night. Huh. I wonder if they didn't have it all organized to throw people out and catch up with phony ballots. Oh, no, Democrats wouldn't do that. Nah. The media says Democrats are very honest and never engage in election fraud. And this must be a hallucination of some kind, that they did this. They're going to say that, Well, I guess I better say right away, I didn't get this from any Russians. And there are no Russians in here. So the Times can't say it came from Russia, which would be their next argument. We'll be right back. If you want a good cigar, go to a good cigar shop. You want the best, go to Famous Smoke Shop. Let Famous Smoke deliver your favorite cigars right to your doorstep at America's lowest prices. Famous opened in 1939 as a small shop in New York City. Today, it's the largest privately held American-owned cigar business in the country. That's 80 years experience in the cigar business, and they're putting that experience to work for you, making deals on the cigars you love, from affordable, everyday smokes to high-end luxury cigars for your next special occasion. Go to famous-smoke.com/Rudy and click the Activate button to apply the promo code. Pick from more than 1,000 cigar brands, fresh and ready to ship from Famous Smoke's climate-controlled, 24,000 square foot humidor. Check out with the promo code RUDY20. That's Rudy, R-U-D-Y, 20, and get $20 off your order. Every cigar purchase you make is backed by the Famous Freshness Guarantee. Get real cigars from a real cigar shop, shipped direct to you from Famous Smoke Shop. Go to famous-smoke.com/Rudy. That's famous-smoke.com/Rudy. Welcome back. Also, there were witnesses, numerous eyewitnesses. I mean, we're backed up with about 50. We presented about 12, and their testimony was all devastating. They were eyewitnesses to fraud. Dana Van Buren Smith, who was a poll worker in Hart County, she stated that she was instructed to bring the ballot bags to the election office unsealed. Why unsealed? Because it's a lot easier to cheat with them when it's unsealed. She noticed them counting from the back room where they were in cardboard boxes rather than the ballot bag that she sealed on election day, which means they either took this sealed box on election day and decided to put it into a crappy cardboard box, or these were just extra votes that had been brought in from somewhere in cardboard boxes that just got added to the tally, and explain some of that difference between the ones that are unaccounted for. I also observed that the special paper ballots were stacked neatly in the boxes, whereas on election night, they were all thrown together in the ballot bags. She called the situation a security nightmare, the county center, a security nightmare. Another one of our poll watchers who stayed there all day, just a very nice person, very spirited public citizen, a gentleman named Mark Amick. Mark Amick stayed there for 2 days as an observer and never got to observe a single ballot, ever. He was put so far away at that Fulton County thing we saw that he couldn't see anything, even with binoculars. I could not read the ballot selections made by the voter on the original ballot or the ballot selections made by poll worker on the second ballot. They were filling out new ballots. They were taking a ballot, and they were filling it out. First of all, that's illegal. Number two, did they put the right name down? Well, Mark Amick said this was done over and over again. He complained about it, but he couldn't read or verify the ballot selections. And eventually, by complaining so much, he was thrown out. He supplied some pictures of just how far away he was. And how, in fact, there was even a poll put up to make it more difficult for him to see anything. But I mean, this is outrageous. They're supposed to be observers, and they're not observing. And then we have an affidavit from Bridget Thorne, who says, over the entire course of my experience, these test ballots were handled by Dominion employees in a haphazard and careless way. At times, they were stacks of test ballots unsecured over the facility, which meant that there were numerous ballots that were available to put in to make up for the difference that brought Biden back with phony votes. And then another witness under oath, Susan Voiles, said that she looked at a large number of ballots, and she's been doing this for 20 years. I observed that the markings for the candidates on these ballots were unusually uniform, perhaps even with a ballot marking device. By my estimate, in observing these ballots, approximately 98% constituted votes for Joe Biden. I only observed 2 of these ballots as votes for Donald J. Trump. Well, there are others, many others. I can show you this chart, which shows you that in the middle of the night, out of nowhere, Biden gets a 107-point jump. 107-point jump. So we get a pretty good idea of who those ballots were for under the table. Well, this is a pretty darn terrible situation, isn't it? Maybe one of the worst in vote counting in our history, because this is not isolated to Georgia. This is true in Pennsylvania. It's true in Michigan. It's true in Wisconsin. It's true in Nevada. It's true in Arizona. And it's true in Georgia. And we have so many reluctant Republicans so afraid to do their duty. Oh, my God. The Democrats steal with impunity, and we are afraid to do our duty. Where's our gumption? Where's our backbone? Where's our dedication to our Constitution? Well, the Supreme Court, assuming that we did have heroic patriots, came up with a solution. Solution is in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, and it says that the state legislature shall be the sole regulator of elections for president and the selection of electors. The case, McPherson versus Blacker, says that it is a plenary power. And it goes on to say, whatever provisions may be made by statute or by the state constitution to choose electors by the people, there is no doubt of the right of the legislature to resume the power at any time. The state, of course, after granting the franchise in the special context of Article 2, can take back the power to appoint electors. And that is particularly true when there are indications of fraud in the election. There are not indications of fraud in this election. There's overwhelming evidence of fraud, including now a smoking gun bank robbery videotape. What do we need, state legislators? What do we need? This is not our obligation to the Republican Party, although that wouldn't be bad either, since our party is being raped by them. This is our obligation to our country. The only way you stop this is by stopping it cold, now. We don't fix it for next time. Next time it gets worse. They come away from this saying, boy, we can really roll these Boy Scouts. I'll tell you, we can roll them. We cheated so bad, so obviously, and these guys just don't have the gumption to stand up to us. They're afraid of what the Washington Post is going to say, or the New York Times is going to say, or NBC, or ABC, or the whole thing. What they should be afraid is, what's your conscience going to say? If you believe in God like me, what's God going to say? The Professor Eastman, ended it with 3 questions that I asked him. Number 1, does the legislature have the power to take evidence and make findings of fraud? The answer, yes. Number 2, can the legislature call itself into session, since this is a power that derives from the United States Constitution, not the state constitution? Answer, of course. And number 3, can one of the remedies be awarding the electors to the aggrieved candidate? The answer to that is, of course, if the evidence is there. Well, now, if this doesn't move our Republican governors and legislators to step up in the name of their country to save this election, what do we have in our party? I don't care if you were once for McCain or you were once for this one or once for that one. I was once for McCain. McCain was a friend of mine. I campaigned for him. I ran against him, and he remained my friend. But let's break all this viciousness now. This is above us. It's too big. This is too big. It's not about Trump. It's not about Biden. It's not about John McCain. It's not about some petty grievance or... We let this happen. We have in 1 year allowed them to erode our right of freedom of religion, really, really limit our right of free speech with the lockdown and the way in which they've imposed an almost iron curtain of silence. And now we've let them substantially destroy our right to vote. It's time for patriots to stand up. You can take the pressure. You might get doxxed. I don't know what will happen to you. How do you want to live your life? Do you want to live it as a patriotic American, or do you want to live it as a sniveling little coward? When people get called on, some men and women get called on to give their lives for our country, and they say yes, and they realize it's unfair that they were the only ones selected. Well, this time the finger of responsibility points to you, the state legislators. You can save our country. You can do something so historic, so brave. We can write a new Profiles in Courage. Maybe we need that. Maybe that turns us around like that. I implore each one of the state legislatures to take up a new special session, listen to the evidence, look at the smoking gun, and make your determination in conjunction with the overwhelming evidence that Biden deliberately stole this election and actually lost it to Donald Trump by a fairly wide margin. Thank you.